You get it going?
Yeah.
Sweet. So this is a pro forma from 68 that we did. And I don't know exactly what version it is, but just kind of quickly go over. We cut this down to a 5-year projection, which is why this is kind of like highlighted. And ultimately, the way that the deal ended up working out, we had to do 2 pro formas, one for the first year before we refinance, and then one after that, just because it kind of gets complicated when you do a refinance. So, but to kind of give you an idea, the red numbers are the numbers that are inputs. So, we had the purchase price of 1.315, capital improvements of 150K, repair addendum of minus 63,000. Listing out current rents, those are kind of givens, inputs, and then listing out what we expect, like the renovated rents or what we can get it up to. But yeah, so going through, you can assume different numbers. Assume annual rent increase of 2% or 5%, and you can kind of check out how that changes out the overall percentages. And you see here, this return on investment goes way up when you do a higher increase. So yeah, when you're doing a pro forma, what you want to make sure is you have all of your expenses in there. So the reason we highlight these numbers in red is because they're generally assumptions. And on the first year, we put in 15% vacancy rate just because we know that we're kicking people out. We've got people transitioning out of a bad unit, renovating it. It's going to be vacant for the construction, and then getting them back in. So it's just a typical higher vacancy. Whenever you're doing a pro forma, best thing to do is be conservative and start really conservative. And then as you look at the deal more and you get more comfortable with it, that's when you start sharpening your pencil and dialing stuff in. So starting out with an expansive list and then narrowing it down is always pretty good. So I've seen some other pro formas that have some stuff in here, but the last thing you want to do is forget about something, and then you get the deal and you're like, oh shit, I forgot about $20,000 worth of siding or something else. I don't know. So the main thing is making sure that you get everything in there. So on this particular one, we don't have any payroll. We assumed after we got it up and going, we're going to have less maintenance and repairs because we've fixing a lot of the problems up front, and those are capital costs, not necessarily maintenance costs. That's just kind of lawn care. Making some other ones ready is going to be $1,500. Presumably after we fix the units up, we have good units and good repair, so the tenant security deposit should cover most of the turns. And we did knock down our management fee to 6% for this to help out. Taxes are kind of a given. Insurance, you can get quotes on that. I think we actually might be high with that. And then lender reserves. And then we did do an asset management fee of 1%. And then here on the cash flow area is where you can put in the terms of the loan. This is when we were looking at just a straight finance. That did not work for us. We had to actually go do a semi-hard money loan, and then the plan is to refinance out. So these numbers do not reflect reality. So you can kind of move them around and see what happens. But if the loan to value goes up, you can see that the percentages go up because you just have less cash in the deal. So it's kind of interesting to see how the numbers actually move when you change them. Obviously, if the interest rate goes up, the cash return goes down. but moving some numbers and even like extending out the 30, taking it to a 30-year instead of 25, that helps too. So we have a preferred return for our investors, which is 7%. And then the LP split after the preferred return is 80-20. So that means that if we had a return of, what is going on? That's what I wanted. If we had a return of 9% in a quarter, let's see, where is, yeah, so this cash ROI is our cash on cash. So the first year we expect to have 7%, but the subsequent years we're looking at like higher percentages for cash on cash return. So the first 7% will go directly to the LP investors, and then that 3.7% will be split, 80% going to the LPs and 20% going to the general partners, and Uptown Syndication would be the general partner. Over on this sheet, we have the IRR and return on investment entirely. So IRR, we're shooting for a 20%. We're hoping that we can beat this. I believe that if we unhide this, this is the general partnership IRR, and then this is the LP. And the reason those are different is because, does anybody know why they're different?
You've invested less cash?
No. It's because the general partnership takes that extra on the preferred return. So the limited partners and also the general partnership at the end of the deal take 20%. So their return is just inherently going to be higher. And they do have like less cash in the deal. I mean, we're acting as limited partners and general partners in the deal, but overall the general partner has essentially no money in the deal. But I think this is a calculation as if the deal was straight up. And so the investors can expect to see at the end of 5 years approximately 77.5% increase on their money. So if they put in 100 grand, they would have seen over the course of disbursements and the return of the money, the sales and the profits, they would see 177,000.
What's the difference between the IRR and just the normal ROI?
ROI is initial investment and then return. Doesn't take into account time. So IRR takes into account time. So over the course of 5 years, you're making about 18% per year is what this says. So if you start out with $100,000 and we ended up cashing out at year 3, the ROI would most likely only be like 140%, 150%, because you'd be making 20% on your money the first year, which would be 120 grand, and 20% on your money the second year, which would be 142 grand, and then sometime in there between 2 and 3, you would cash out.
Okay.
So IRR takes into account the time value of money. I mean, because likewise, like you could put in the way some people can say, oh, my ROI is going to be, 250%, but if you put in 100 grand and it takes 50 years to make 250%, that's not that good of a deal. So and you kind of always, whenever you hear ROI, you have to like think in the back of your head, well, what sort of time frame is that actually happening over? And that helps you kind of get more to the IRR calculation.
Okay. Is that discounted cash flows essentially, or is that not really being taken into account at all? Like if an interest rate, like you could yield a bond is, I don't know, like 3% or whatever it is the IRR taken into account, like the discount rate, or is it just the straight up internal rate of return averaged out per year, like roughly 18%?
That is a good question. So we give a preferred return of 7%, And the IRR typically takes into account a typically it takes into account what your expected return is. And I don't know that this calculates that. And when you're looking at IRRs, if you know that you can, and this is like when you're analyzing deals, right? Like if you know that you can get a 15% return over at another investment, but you can get a 20% return on this investment, but there's only an 80% chance that you get a 20% return.
Right.
Like it's like, well, what's the other 20% chance? Is that going to be 10% or is it going to be 2%? And that's where it's like, the bottom rate of what you can get on your money, and most people set that at that. And that's one of the reasons, like, that's our min, right, is 7%. Like, we can't say that we guarantee it, but it's pretty much guaranteed. I mean, before any profit is taken from the company, other than like the management fees that the property management company is doing, and what else, like, the investor is going to get their money back before any GP takes the profit. So that's kind of where the expected return on the IRR calculation is 7% for those.
Right on.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, you did say, after you start conservative, and then as you become more familiar with the deal, as you do more research, then you start to sharpen your pencil. What kind of things are you looking for that give you more confidence, putting in more accurate or more precise numbers?
Getting like hard quotes on insurance, getting hard quotes on your construction budgets. Like when you start getting quotes for like roofs, you can budget like 20, like I think we budgeted like 22 or 25,000 in this. And then we started drilling that down, and I think you can make small adjustments here and there. And hopefully when you're doing that, like, budget and estimate, like, you want to be high. And then you want to start, like, we looked into mold and we got into the place and got to see more, and then we kind of realized, like, it's not that big of a deal. We just need to fix the leaks, and we need to, clean up the attic a little bit and get some dehumidifiers. It's not like a full on, like, cut out the drywall and do everything. And that's like when you're doing the repair addendum too. Like, if you get it under contract, like, you want to paint the picture that, I mean, it's about to fall down. That's how you're going to get the best price on your repair addendum. I mean, you can almost have like two sets of numbers. One that's the, what your original budget was, which is super, super conservative. And then you have your other budget of, like, this is what I really think I can get it down to. And what I will say too is, like, with construction, my dad, who I'm here visiting right now, always says it takes longer and it costs more. There's some absolute truth to that.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to have some contingency in there in your budget as well. And really just, like, try to think of everything and put a number to it. And then as you sharpen your pencil and you find out what those numbers actually are. And again, try to start high and then come down. And I know that can be hard too, because then you're like, every deal you look at, you're like, oh man, this is a dog. And then, but you're like, if I sharpen my pencil on it, it starts to, like, get a little bit better and a little bit better. But you'll thank yourself in the end if you if you have 100% of your projects and your deals are profitable. There's a reason that you start high and you look at a lot of deals. It's a time consuming thing. And as you get better at it, you recognize what's going to be a good deal and what's not a lot easier, which I'm sure you guys are starting to do too.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
Oh, thank you.
All right. And you guys have access to this on Dropbox under the syndication folder. Please don't change it, but you can take a copy of it. I think I've sent it out to all of you too. For some of my, some like really rudimentary one, this is another one that I made up when we first started doing deals. And like I think I even got 6817 Oak on here and Longhorn, and then a couple. Well, and I did 2600 Lombard too, so maybe not that old. But these are just, it's like a cash flow calculator, and like this is where you can kind of, I mean, you guys are welcome. I can send this out to you too, but this is the type of thing that I would share with my clients. That first pro forma, when someone looks at that for the first time, this one, it's just like, whoa, this is so much information. And this is for multiple units. Like, I think Kevin Hofstee had one that was just like a super financial model. And sometimes it doesn't need to be that hard. Sometimes it just needs to be like, is this going to make you guys, is this going to make a lot of money? Like, does this make sense? So as you can see, like some of them make more sense than others. But the problem is like this one was bought 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, every year that goes by and your rent increases more than your assumed 2 or 3%, like, you know, the cap is at 10% now with the state. Like, you know, CPI is 3. That's why, you know, our assumption on here 3 is super conservative. So,
I mean, typically the annual revenue increase is going to be what, 5 to 6%?
yeah, I mean, if you look at it over the last like 10 years, shoot, you're going to see 8 or 9% in rents. Just because we had that huge jump between what 2012 and 2015. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at it like over the course of 100 years, I think it's more along that, you know, 3 to 4% range.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I know that there's very few drops. But yeah, like I said, this is something that like, it's a good way to say that like, these are a couple of the deals that we, like, if I, you know, like I put these deals up, like these are a couple of the deals that we did, and this is what they look like now. And then this is like one that we're looking at so that you can compare whatever newest deal that you're looking at with your client, and kind of understand like what's going to be good, what's going to be bad. So when we put this one in, you know, even if it's a negative cash flow, like a small amount for the entire year, like you got to know that like their principal, like they're gonna be getting, you know, $1,200 in principal a year. So I mean, it's still gonna make money. And I think that's what I was doing down here. Is first payment principal is $800. So net, they're actually making $800 a month. So that's why it's like the getting people into the first one, and then they start to understand after a couple of years. They get the HELOC, and like it starts to compound. So
for that Rock Creek deal, I mean, if a client's looking at that, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm technically losing $8 per month before
yep.
you rent the rest of it."
Yep.
So for $8 a month, you could have a deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, for the most part, most people when they price real estate kind of do a pro forma too. And with the financing that's out there, it's generally like a zero cash flow. Like they try to, that's how they try to price it. So, and what's kind of interesting, I'm sure you guys, well, I mean, in the residential market, the 0 to 4 bedroom market, like a lot of brokers don't know what they're doing. And so you may find some that are mispriced, which if you look at the stats, I think Taylor, when you were going over the stats in the WIN meeting, like the 2 to 4 bedroom like time on the market was like 12 days or something. It was something ridiculous. It's because what happens is someone puts something on the market and it's actually a good deal, it goes away real quickly. But then if it's not a good deal, like it stays on the market forever, because everyone that is looking in that market like knows how to analyze a deal, and it's not like they realize what the income is and what's not. And so there's a fine threshold on what becomes a good deal and what doesn't in the multifamily market. So
Yeah.
a little bit different than the residential, like where you have the first time home buyer and emotional, like this is the perfect place for me and the great location, and
My kids will run around in the backyard.
exactly. My kids friends live next door.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'm on it. So, all right, that's my pro forma and analyzing. So
Great.
stop recording.